There's some more JavaScript we want to learn about. So we're going to add a couple more buttons so that we can add more details. So I'm just going to do a paragraph and create two buttons. This one's going to show all, and this one is going to end show. I need to set the IDs to stop. I'll set this one to show all so we can access them in our JavaScript. And now we have three event listeners, one for the load event on the window, one that uses a named function on the show button, and one that uses an anonymous function on the build button. So we have those three events. We want to add two more, one for each of these buttons. We're going to add them inside this add listeners function so that they're added after the page loads. And I'm simply going to go get that element, the one that is show all, and I'm going to add an event listener to it. Now this time I'm going to use a named function. We'll just kind of use both so that we're really comfortable either using named functions or anonymous functions. I want to respond to the click event, and we'll call a function named start show. Now this function doesn't yet exist, so I'm going to go down and create it. And there we have the function. Now to get started, we're going to need a couple of things. One, we're going to need an array of those image file names and a timer variable. So I'm going to access those from several different functions. So I'm going to add them as global variables, which means they're going to be outside of any function. So we have several functions here, but if I'm right here, I'm outside of any function. So I'm going to create a variable that is the picture images. And I'm going to call this variable cone pictures. And I'm going to do an array. And one way you can create an array is simply by doing square brackets and then inside here listing the value of the array elements. And what I want these to be is I want them to be source attributes for each of the images. Cone0.jpg. And I want to do this for each of the each image. Remember that we went from 0 to 10, so that's 11 images. There's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And so there's cone 1, cone 2, and I'll just change all of these, and what this will do is this will give me an array of elements, array of strings. Actually, it's just an array of strings, and each string contains the right path and file name for one of the images. And that's how I create an array. So it's just a variable and all the values are separated by commas. This is an array of strings. I also want a variable that can contain a timer, and I'm just going to give it the name. I can name it anything I want, but I'm going to give it the name timer, and I'm not going to give it a value yet. But I've got these set up so that I can use them now. So in the start show, I want to create a timer or set the timer. And the way that I do that is I use that variable timer and the function setInterval. This is a built-in JavaScript function. So setInterval. It expects two arguments. The first one is the name of a function. So let's do it, change picture. And the second one is the number of milliseconds that you're going to call it. You're setting up an interval. It's going to call this function every so often. And here's where we tell it how often. So if I say 1,000 milliseconds, that means it will be 1 second. Every second it's going to call this function. Now I need to create this function. And in here we'll write whatever it is we want to happen every second.